big bits of the jet had just fallen in the main street. You know, there was a smouldering jet engine just sort of sitting there.
Not only is it Britain's worst air disaster, it's one of the worst in aviation history. There were 258 passengers and crew aboard Flight 103. Many were US military personnel and students going home for Christmas. None survived.
In 1988, I was the Europe correspondent for the Sydney Morning Herald in London. I think I was one of 3 journalists on the site, and that was because I drove there. I saw it on the news, I looked it on the map, I thought that looks like it's about 5 hours away. Australians drive 5 or 6 hours for a wedding.
The flight began in Frankfurt. With a change of aircraft in London, it took off from Heathrow at 6:25 in the evening. Less than an hour later, it dropped from the sky over the Scottish border town of Lockerbie.
So I grabbed a friend of mine who was a journalist at The Guardian and we drove up. And only when we got there did I realise that not many people had done that. In fact, there was one, as we nosed into the car park, one other car nosed in right next door to us at the same point, and it was we met the person. He was a journalist with the Sunday Times, and the 3 of us had the town to ourselves. It hadn't been locked off yet. There were still firefighters trying to do their work. There was smoke everywhere. There was flames everywhere. Nothing was sort of ticker taped off. Big bits of the jet had just fallen in the main street. You know, there was a smouldering jet engine just sort of sitting there, kind of. They're so big, you can't imagine how big they are if you see them out of context.
It was an inferno. Those aboard had no chance. Those on the ground, almost none. 2 rows of houses in the little town were razed. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of aviation fuel.
We spent a long period trying to find the rest of the plane, so we walked right out of town up into this beautiful meadow, and just as the dawn broke, we realised probably we wouldn't find the nose cone and all of that, it was probably 10 kilometres away. And so we went back into the town, at which point it was full of all these journalists and film crews, and also, you know, rescue workers and medical staff who were all trying to work out what had happened and try to find anybody who needed help. But the reality was no one needed help because people had either been obliterated or they were okay. I can still smell the aviation fuel in the air of that town and the smoke, this sort of acrid smoke that was pouring out of everything, and, you know, feel that the sort of dark horror of that place at that particular moment. And then I so sharply remember this hillside that we walked onto as we were searching for the plane, and dawn breaking over this town, and it being so beautiful, and, you know, birdsong and all of that. You know what that border country is like. It's so beautiful. And we were there in this sort of beautiful spot, the 3 of us, looking down on this total devastation. And I don't think I'll ever forget that contrast either.